Hi, we're going to get started now with Module 2, which is going to focus on the second trimester of pregnancy in the Healthy Body, Healthy Baby, Healthy You curriculum. And the objectives today are to appreciate that both the mom and the baby are undergoing changes and growth during the second trimester of pregnancy, and also that the baby is now starting to grow more. There was a lot of development during the first trimester, and now there's going to be continuing development as well as increase in size for both mom and baby. And we're also going to talk a little bit why towards the end of the second trimester, uh, all the moms will be screened for diabetes, and how in pregnancy, both food and activity can influence your blood sugar levels, which influences the health of your baby and you. And we're going to discover strategies and discuss managing cravings during pregnancy. And finally, participate in a practical food-based planning activity, because nutrition is only nutrition once you eat it. So really, we talk a lot about nutrients and nutrition, but it comes down to the food that we eat, because that is the vehicle for getting that. So we're going to talk about, some practical what to do in your kitchen, and build on that as we move into the next module, where we will actually be doing some meal planning. So if participants have attended the first session, start out by leading a discussion where you ask them if they've made any changes, implemented their action steps, run up against any, barriers, or do they have questions about the material that was previously covered? So kind of do an overview. And even if you have participants that are attending this session for the first time, it's good to have that review of how you talked about nutrient-dense foods and better calories, whole foods, and all those kinds of things. At this time, again, you're going to pass out the note card, just like you did in the first class and all the classes. And on their note card, ask them whether they're having any food cravings. Sometimes this is sort of funny because they might even be a little embarrassed. I've heard it all. Pickles and ice cream are always the, standard, we talk about and laugh about. But women have all kinds of food cravings during pregnancy, and hormonal levels influence those types of things that sound good to us that may not have sounded good at any other stage of our life. And we don't fully understand it. It is a lot of what is going on inside our body and with our hormone levels. Uh, but you will discuss that and how to maybe approach them from a nutrition point of view. Favorite food they might have from either the protein or dairy food group, and any questions or concerns that they might have now about weight gain in pregnancy. This is the time in pregnancy where women often are very worried about, again, gaining too much or too little weight. Ask participants to introduce themselves, and again, if they feel comfortable, ask them to share one or more of the items that they recorded on their note cards, just as kind of an icebreaker and a way to get to know each other. And again, remind participants there that today our focus is the second trimester of pregnancy. So some key messages here: the building blocks of your baby are coming from the food you eat and your prenatal supplements. The vital organs are continuing to grow and develop. Bone development is very critical during the second trimester. So we have the basics of our bones, but they're very soft. And now we need to start making sure we're getting the nutrients for bone building, including protein, calcium, and vitamin D. The requirement for calcium is around 1,000 milligrams. In teenage pregnancies, from 14 to 18, it's even higher because young women will still be building their own bones. So it's around 1,300. So, in addition to taking a prenatal supplement, which will provide the vitamin D if they're not able to get it through food, vitamin D is very difficult to get in the Pacific Northwest because we have more indirect sun rays. So we're going to get that from the prenatal supplement, but it's important to consume at least 3 servings of calcium-rich foods each day. So dairy will cover that, but if there's a reason that a pregnant person cannot have dairy, then we need to think of other alternate sources. So a serving is considered 8 ounces of either milk or yogurt, about 1.5 ounces of cheese, or 8 ounces of a fortified alternative beverage, such as soy milk. When you look at other alternative beverages such as almond and rice and oat, some of those milks, they don't have the same protein that you would get in soy milk or dairy milk. So a lot of times we do recommend going with, say, a soy milk. If there is also a soy and dairy allergy, then we often have to look at other types of alternatives. But making sure that you are getting something that is calcium fortified and the protein is helpful as well. Other calcium-rich food sources would be canned salmon or sardines that include the bones, firm tofu that is set with calcium sulfate. So you have to do a little bit of label reading if you're looking at tofu. It's often the firm or extra firm, and it will indicate that calcium, it has calcium sulfate, and it will indicate that it has calcium in the nutrition facts label. White beans and almonds are also sources of calcium. A lot of times I get the question, what about dark greens? Dark greens do have some calcium, but it's often not as available to our body. So dark greens are wonderful for many, many nutrients, but they have something called oxalates, which will interfere with calcium absorption. So while it's great to get a lot of dark greens, that's not necessarily your best source of calcium. So you still need the dairy or other sources of calcium-rich foods. During pregnancy, even women who have never experienced any type of diabetes, may not have it in their family, for some reason, the stress on your system and your pancreas, women are at higher risk for what is called gestational diabetes, which is diabetes that comes, appears during pregnancy, and then after pregnancy usually resolves. So that's the good news. But diabetes of any kind, type 2 or gestational diabetes, poses a challenge for the developing baby and actually can result in a higher than normal birth weight. And it's not a healthy high birth weight. So babies born with this high birth weight as a result of diabetes may have a higher risk of chronic disease later in life. So it's very important to identify and to manage if there is gestational diabetes. So towards the end of the second trimester, sometimes even into the very early third trimester, women will be screened for gestational diabetes, and that will be a fasting glucose test and what we call an oral glucose challenge, where you drink a heavily sweetened beverage, and then they check your blood sugar over a few hours. So it's done differently in different clinics, but basically it's monitoring how your body's responding to a load of sugar. If the screening is positive, then your healthcare provider will advise about any kinds of foods and if you need medication of any kind to control it. But in general, eating, again, going back to the whole and processed foods, things that have a lot of fiber, like legumes, whole grains, um, whole vegetables, whole fruits, as opposed to juices, limiting your added sugars, and all the food labels have added sugars listed on the nutrition facts panel. So added sugars aren't, in addition, so certain foods have naturally occurring sugars, but it is the added sugars that we're most concerned with. So say for instance a carton of yogurt, just plain yogurt, will have some sugar listed. That's naturally occurring from the lactose. But if it's a sweetened yogurt, it might have an additional 10 or 15 or more grams of sugar, and that's something to limit. And the same is true with fruit. Fruit has naturally occurring sugar, but you might find products like, say, canned fruit with a lot of added sugars, and that's something, again, to limit. Eating smaller, frequent meals and also exercise can help control blood sugar levels, especially if you've had a larger meal. Getting up, you don't have to go run or do something extreme, but getting up and just moving around, taking even just a little stroll around the neighborhood after a big meal can bring those blood sugar levels down. So, again, this will be something that a healthcare provider would go over and give specific recommendations. But it's good advice for everyone, because we don't really, during pregnancy, high blood sugar levels aren't really good for either the mom or the baby. This is one of my favorite charts, because it explains where all this weight gain is coming from. I've been asked a number of times, so my baby is going to weigh, say, 8 pounds. Why am I gaining 35 pounds? And so when you look at this chart, it kind of explains where all this weight gain is coming from. The line just indicates that is the size of your baby at the beginning of the second trimester. So you have a little, about the size of a small lime, that's going to be quickly growing. Your breasts, obviously, you've already noticed your breasts are increasing. The baby is, somewhere between, I would say, 6 to even 9 pounds. The placenta, which is that organ that your body produces just for pregnancy, can weigh up to 2 pounds. The uterus itself increases in size. The amniotic fluid, which we don't think about that, but that's about 2 to 3 pounds of fluid. So that's quite a bit of fluid. Your blood increases, your blood volume increases about 50%. You do need to add more storage to your body. Your protein and fat storage is 8 to 10 pounds, and that's preparing you for lactation. So your body does need extra reserves, and your own other body fluids, in your lymph system and other places, is another 3 to 4 pounds. So the total weight gain, um, really is on average somewhere between 25 and 35, but it's very highly individual. And your healthcare provider can give you good guidance on maybe about how much you should gain. So gradual weight gain, it's not a time to restrict or diet. So not worrying too much about it. Focusing on the healthy eating, the moderate exercise, and not restricting or dieting or worrying too much about, the weight gain. There is a handout that you can review with your participants, Feeding Your Growing Baby Guidelines for Weight Gain. And the expected average weight gain is going to vary. So the general guideline is about 3 to 4 pounds a month, starting in the second trimester. And the range, depending on your pre-pregnancy weight, can be from 15 all the way up to 40 pounds for a woman who comes in at a lower weight and is maybe even a little bit underweight, may need to gain up to 40 pounds. But the main goals again are to strive for your more nutrient dense, or what we call the better calories. Again, whole fruits, vegetables, whole grains as much as possible, your calcium rich dairy, and your healthy proteins. And on average, you may get this question. I don't tend to focus on calories and calorie counting at all. But if you get the question, women need about 350 more daily calories to support the growing baby during the second trimester. And that's not really hard to get. I mean, 350 calories, that could be, a bowl of oatmeal with a banana, or a bagel with some peanut butter. So it's not difficult to get that additional calories. So next, we're going to talk about cravings. The hormonal changes associated with pregnancy leads to, we laugh about it because they're often interesting food preferences and combinations. And this is often a time where participants will laugh and share, and you can't believe, what I'm eating. I'm putting ketchup on macaroni and cheese, or all kinds of interesting different combinations and cravings. One way, and normally it's not a huge problem unless your cravings tend to be for, highly processed, that you're eating just chips and sodas and a lot of that type of food. So one way to curb your cravings is to, again, eat regular meals and snacks throughout the day. So you don't have to be eating a lot, but having these small snacks, a lot of times your body is needing some extra food, and that's what's driving your cravings. When you add some protein and some fiber in your snacks, it tends to fill you up and satisfy you more. So you're not getting a wild blood sugar swing, which also, if your blood sugar goes low, that can lead to craving, especially carbohydrate rich foods. So if you're having some healthy, high fiber, carbohydrate, and protein, that's going to really help you, throughout the day. So that could be, apples and peanut butter. It could be, a little bit of cheese and some whole grain crackers. You could have some yogurt with berries. You could have a little smoothie. But having that combination of protein and fiber-rich foods is really helpful. And there is a handout on healthy snacking that you can link to, that will give some good ideas of combining that protein and fiber-rich foods. And again, reassuring participants that occasional treats and indulgences are perfectly fine. So we're never expecting that 100% of what you eat should be all healthy, the most nutrient dense. 80 to 90%, hopefully, of our diet is healthy foods. And that allows us to have some ice cream or a cookie or an occasional, snack food that's not perfectly well balanced. So We're not going for perfection. And that can lead to disordered eating and other things anyway. So occasional treats and indulgences are actually a good thing. So the activity here in getting participants to think in a practical way that will help them not only now, but as they're raising their family and, you know, preparing meals for their children and teaching good eating habits kind of starts right in your kitchen. So there is a handout called Stocking Your Kitchen, and this exercise, they actually sit and think about what is in their kitchen, what's on the countertop when you walk in your kitchen. What do you see? You know, we do eat with our eyes. So when you walk in the kitchen and the first thing you see is often, if you're especially really hungry, what you're going to grab. What's in your cupboards and pantry? What's in the refrigerator? What's in the freezer? So going through that exercise, and then there's suggestions on the handout too of things that they might want to always have on the countertop, like say fresh fruit, like a fresh fruit bowl. Um, things to always stock in your cupboards and pantry, things to stock in your refrigerator, things to include in your freezer, so that you could, make a simple 3 or 4 meals just based on what you normally stock in your kitchen. And then there's spaces for them to put their favorites. So there's suggestions, but then the favorite types of foods that they can do. And this will get them started thinking, because the next session, we're going to take this even further and we're going to have some meal prepping activities that will provide a whole week's worth of meals. And finally, share the recipe handouts with your participant. We've been talking a lot about protein and dairy. And so the two recipes that go with this module are a grain and black bean bowl that's very flexible. You could use other different kinds of beans or legumes. You could use different kinds of grains, and you can use up leftovers. And the other one is a veggie full omelet, which again is a great way when I have leftover and just little bits of, vegetables sitting around and I want to use things up. I often, my go-to is a vegetable omelet, which is easy to make. And if you do, again, have a facility that would allow it, and time, demonstrating and tasting the recipes is always a really powerful teaching tool that the participants will remember and they'll enjoy, and it will even help them to come back, because everyone loves just taste testing and getting new ideas. And next, we come to the bringing about change. And if you recall from module 1, we're always going to kind of follow the same strategy for bringing about change. We'll first ask whether there are questions, and giving plenty of time for discussion and questions. And, if you don't know the answer, reassuring them that you'll get back to them either through email or you will look it up or find it out. Going through the 1 to 10 motivation rating scale. So, again, how motivated are you based on what you learned today to make changes? And what would help you to move up the motivation scale? Have them turn over their note cards and again ask them one area they would like to change, any difficulties or barriers, and a specific action step. Group discussion, and again, encouraging sharing and support. And then asking them to come back to the third trimester class so that we can check on progress on our action steps. And, behavior change is not something that is just linear. It has, stops and starts, and you're doing pretty well, and then you have setbacks. So, reminding them that it is, a work in progress and that we're all working on it. And the example that I give here, a participant states they would like to improve their afternoon snacking. Afternoon snacking is a problem. That is the time of day where we often get so busy. We might be at work, or we might be working at home, or, parenting our children, which is certainly working. And the hours kind of just get away from us, and all of a sudden we're a little bit hungry or hangry, and we just grab for anything. So that afternoon snacking time is a difficult one, whether you're pregnant or not. And barriers to better afternoon snacking might include that you're tired, you don't have the time, you haven't planned for it, or you have affordability issues. So a specific action step might be to stock up, to think about it early in the week when you're doing your shopping, and having really easy, affordable protein sources. Remember, we want to do a protein and a whole grain, or a high fiber food. So something like a boiled egg is a great, easy protein source. Peanuts, canned beans, and pair them with whole grains such as whole wheat bread, whole corn tortillas, or seasonal fruits and vegetables. So planning ahead often can really help with that afternoon snacking. So that's just one example that you could use with the participants. But again, have them share their, you know, areas they want to change, barriers, and together maybe problem solve specific things.